Good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, May 27th, and this is Q News Tonight, the world's first live LGBTQ daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news.
In tonight's episode, we will bring you up-to-the-minute updates on the historic launch for SpaceX as they send NASA astronauts to the ISS.
The toxic masculinity and curse-filled video released of the homophobic Brazilian president.
We celebrate as Costa Rica is the first Central American country to have marriage equality.
We're surprised as Jared Kushner is demanding less culture war planks in the Republican Party.
Breaking news on George Floyd protests erupt in Minnesota. Does this remind you of Stonewall movement for the LGBTQ community?
Twitter censors Trump. It only took them 4 years to do it. Trump threatens to cancel Twitter, not his account, but the entire platform.
We're shocked by Diana Ross, who originally didn't understand the power of her song, I'm Coming Out.
A new study shows bullying leads to the lion's share of LGBTQ teen suicides.
In Quarantine Quickies, we give you up-to-minute reporting on testing, cases, and deaths. We're also going to show you how our LGBTQ gyms will change for the LGBTQ community. Also, Trump mocks Biden's masculinity for wearing a mask.
In our lighthearted Big Finish, we will discuss how a passenger is jailed for squeezing an air steward's butt and called him a gay boy.
Lisa Kudrow winks. Friends reunion is happening.
A new report shows why Donald Trump is the least masculine president in modern history.
And Glee's Chris Colfer turns 30 years old. We take a fun look back.
So good evening, America. It is 7 p.m. Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. It is time to queer up the news. We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your stories we are going to tell next on Q News Tonight. Tonight on the world's first live daily queer evening news show.
Tonight's news about the gay community and the news from an LGBTQ perspective. Are our gay stories important to you? In headlines, politics, entertainment, gay culture, travel, religion, and more. Reported by respected anchors.
Out of the closet and into the headlines on Q News Tonight. Thank you for joining Q News Tonight. We are live. This is a live show, so anything can happen. Tonight, we bring you the news of and a perspective from the LGBTQ community. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and this is my co-guest anchor, Misty Eyes, and my friend anchor, Napoleon Plays. Let's cue up the news.
We are proud to share with you that our LGBTQ television network supports the unique live broadcast of Sunshine Cathedral's Sunday Church Service, the world's most popular LGBTQ queer religious broadcast. And we are proud of our diverse 501c3 and charitable support.
The Happening Out television network is the largest live LGBTQ media platform on the planet.
With Q News Tonight, It's Happening Out, and Happening.fun, our network is the most important live LGBTQ video website in the world, with more daily traffic and visits than any other LGBTQ brand.
We are prime digital TV partners with both YouTube and Facebook. In April, more than 2.2 million viewers watched our LGBTQ shows. We are the source for the LGBT community for news, talk shows, and entertainment.
Tonight we bring you Q Headlines. The LGBTQ community in America is diverse. The LGBTQ community around the world is vast. We bring you a bullet point of the queer news for today, Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. We begin by queuing up the world. Today we had a historic launch announced today for SpaceX as they attempted to send NASA astronauts to the ISS. In our breaking news, as we were going to open the show with, of course, at 4:30 this afternoon, the launch was canceled and rescheduled until Saturday because of weather. This is a historic launch in that it is the first time in 10 years from the United States American astronauts are launched to the NASA space station and presumably will happen on Saturday.
I'm sure a lot of us down here knew some people that were going up there for the 3-hour drive just to sit there and watch the 30 seconds where they launch. But it might be a little bit disheartening to know that it was put off. But apparently there are about 1,000 accidents that would happen a day in an airline if the same difficulty factor were factored in as what happens in a space program. So ideally, they want to make sure the conditions are safe, and I understand why they delayed it.
For those of you in America that are not paying attention to Florida news, there is a tropical storm/hurricane in the distance, and that their spurts are throwing rain our way, and we are hurricane-ish weathers and in the winds. So safety first. I think it's best they move it.
There is a positive. President Trump got on Air Force One from Washington, had to fly down, fly around for a little while, get off, get back on the plane, and fly back to Washington. So he tweeted a lot less today.
Oh. Well, we cue up the world. A curse-filled video released of homophobic Brazilian president Jair Bolsonaro amid corruption allegations. Following Brazil's former justice minister Sergio Moro's resignation last month, he claimed that Bolsonaro had been trying to illegally interfere with criminal investigations into his sons. This prompted the Supreme Court of the country to release a 2-hour video of a cabinet meeting for transparency purposes, which deregulate environmental policy, and him admitting he would interfere on his family's behalf in any investigation into them.
I love traveling across our globe, and I'm usually embarrassed to say that I'm from America. It's nice to know that another country is being run by a toddler.
Well, we're watching toxic masculinity. For me this week, there's so much in the news about toxic masculinity. He is the representation of it. We reported last night that over the weekend, 46,000 new cases of COVID-19 in Brazil and 3,000 deaths. It sits at his feet because of the way he acts and speaks.
Well, we know that while it might be a beautiful location to go to for the space itself and for the people
and the men,
everyone there, it is not a very LGBTQ friendly nation, especially towards the trans community. Unfortunately, we see the same kind of nepotism and family allegiance that we see here and in other countries that we might be naming later today.
Now we cue up the world. Costa Rica is the first Central American country to have marriage equality. We have a video for you. Watch this.
Daritza Rea Agreras and Alexandra Quiros Castillo on Tuesday became the first same-sex couple to get married in Costa Rica. The lesbian couple wed just after midnight in a private ceremony when a national ban on same-sex marriage was lifted. Marco Castillo and his longtime partner Rodrigo Campo also tied the knot, becoming the first couple in the country to get married in a courthouse in front of a judge. In 2018, the country's Supreme Court ruled a ban on same-sex marriage was unconstitutional and gave lawmakers 18 months to pass new legislation to legalize it. Since they didn't do that, same-sex marriage became legal automatically on May 26. Costa Rica became the first country in Central America and the 6th country in Latin America to allow same-sex marriage. Ecuador just allowed it last year. President Carlos Alvarado Quesada celebrated in a video message, saying, "This change will cause a significant social and cultural transformation of the country."
On Tuesday, marriage equality became legal in Costa Rica, with the Supreme Court lifting the previous ban. The first couple to be wed were two women by the name of Daritza Area and Alexandra Niros, who were shortly wed after midnight by a notary wearing a face mask. Costa Rica, still dyslexic, trying to read a prompter, sorry. Costa Rica became the 6th country in Latin America to legalize marriage equality, following in Ecuador's footsteps just last year.
Well, it's very exciting news. Every country that adds marriage equality is one step closer, especially notable in this instance. Very conservative Central America, Latin, not only because of Latin, but because of the region. Costa Rica is now going to lead the way of being a domino that's going to tumble and topple over the entire region in acceptance of marriage equality.
Marriage equality is a very good standard by which everyone wants to achieve, or at least we would hope in the LGBTQ community we want a country to achieve. However, it is not the end goal for all LGBTQ equality. From housing provisions to job fairness, there are so many other things that we need to focus on. This is just the first step, and I urge everybody to remember that.
From both of your mouths to God's ears, I do hope that they will follow, the other countries will follow in Costa Rica's footsteps.
We cue up the USA tonight by reporting that Jared Kushner makes a play for voters by demanding less culture war planks in the Republican Party. Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law, and one of his top advisors, wishes to reduce the party's platform so that it can be a singular page rather than what he calls a bloated mess. He currently sees it as it is 58 pages. One potentially surprising removal is an end to touting conversion therapy, which is the barbaric practice of trying to turn an LGBTQ member straight. He believes that this reduction in this cultural sore point will broaden the coalition within the party.
It's interesting to hear bloated mess and not hear him talking about his father-in-law, Donald Trump. I'm surprised that 58 pages is too much for him to read, but it would be interesting to have a scaled-down version of what the Republican Party is supposed to be, because I'm sure many of them would leave if that's actually what they found out it really was.
For whatever reason, I'm glad they're trying to take that out, and baby steps.
Kushner is making the steps, albeit political, are still worthwhile. There's many of these bloated planks in the Republican Party that are never going to be implemented, but they're sat there as a spur to be in your side. And so if he can remove them, great.
We cue up the USA. George Floyd protests erupt in Minnesota. In graphic video that could have been taken on the streets outside the Stonewall Inn in 1969, a black man by the name of George Floyd pleaded for an officer to get off his neck because he could not breathe. He would later be rushed to the hospital only to die the very same day. Hundreds packed the streets of Minneapolis to protest Floyd's death only 24 hours after everything happened. 4 police officers that were involved in the incident have already been fired, according to Minneapolis police.
It is so sad that we constantly see transgender and people of color constantly being attacked and dying ruthlessly. It's so sad.
Positives. The 4 officers are fired within 24 hours, meaning the union did not step in to try to stop it. Positives. The state's attorney general is very vocally pursuing this in terms of perhaps even murder charges. Negatives. The police department of Minneapolis used tear gas and rubber bullets to break up a peaceable demonstration yesterday. We'll watch tonight in terms of what happens.
We described later that America is supposed to be the leading nation of the free world, but I don't understand how that could possibly be the case when we see these same examples on TV time and time again, whether that be a mass shooting or a shooting of somebody that should not have been killed, or in this case not a shooting, but just being... It doesn't matter. We continue to have the same stories every time, and I don't know how we can lead the world when we're following ourselves in a circle.
Now we cue up entertainment. Diana Ross originally didn't understand the power of her song, I'm Coming Out. It has been recently revealed that while Diana Ross immediately loved the empowering message of her hit single, I'm Coming Out, that it was only after a DJ mistakenly assumed she was using the song to come out herself. Not until that interview did this particular meaning land solidly upon her. The co-writer of that song, Nile Rodgers, got inspiration for the song by seeing Diana Ross impersonators at Gigi's Barnum Room, a popular trans club in New York.
First off, I challenge Rachel Maddow to sing part of the story she reports tonight. This is very interesting to me. She didn't recognize that coming out of the closet, for example, was an illustration of the song and would be immediately be embraced by some of her most loyal fans, which was the LGBT community.
It's interesting as well because her daughter is now taking on the spotlight, not just starring in Blackish and Mixedish, but also having her own movie where she's a singer, The High Note, coming out on home release sometime soon. But I actually really love what this family is doing, and let's see them do more for LGBTQ and minority groups in the future.
Absolutely. I love that Niall knew what he was doing when he wrote this song. I'm not surprised he hid it initially from her. I'm kind of surprised that she didn't catch on to it, but I can honestly say I have been one of those transgender entertainers performing in drag shows singing I'm Coming Out.
And let's face it, she was best friends with Michael Jackson, for God's sakes.
Hello.
Cue up entertainment tonight as Dwayne Wade dyes his hair to support his trans daughter. In a post off Instagram, the former Miami Heat basketball player shared a picture of himself and his daughter Zara sporting matching dyed red hair. Dwayne and his wife, Gabrielle Union, have been widely praised for their attitude toward their daughter's coming out. Wade continues to prove that black athletes do not need to embrace toxic masculinity.
It's honestly the both of them. I mean, especially coming from a background of sports and acting, as the two of them do, those can be pretty aggressive places, but they've really found their niche, or at least a niche, in LGBTQ culture by continuing to support their own child, and thusly so many other people that love them for what they do, or for who are just fans of Bring It On, because I know I am.
We should not have to applaud people for backing up and supporting their children. It's sad that we live in a community where we have to, but I will continue to applaud him and Gabrielle, both of them proud people of the people of color community and proud of their child. I remember last year around Christmas time, they posted a family portrait where their daughter, assigned male at birth, posted very feminine with painted nails and a crop top. They hadn't come out as trans yet, but they were very embracing of their femininity, and the world lost its mind. They've always had their back and go. I would dye my hair too for my kid.
Of course, as you likely know, their family here in South Florida. We're very excited about that. What's unusual about this story to me is, first, it is a male sports star. It is a male black sports star that has been so positive on a topic that generally is taboo. And second, what's really interesting about this story is the embracement of Zara came so young. She is very young, and their embracement of what Zara was exploring came almost immediately, which I think is fantastic.
Cue up Vote 2020. Twitter censors Trump. It only took them 4 years. For the first time, Twitter has warned a Trump tweet for being a false claim after he posted lies about mail-in voting on Tuesday. A spokesperson for Twitter confirmed that the tweets violated their new civic integrity policy, implemented on May 11th, which bars users from manipulating or interfering in elections or other civic processes. Trump, for his part, decreed the fact his free speech was being interfered with, despite the fact that federal law expressly allows internet platforms to moderate third-party speech that they publish. Trump obviously tweeted that they were trying to interfere in the 2020 election and that he would use his power to end Twitter.
My mind is all over the place. We, again, are being run in this country by a toddler. And I think Twitter is his best friend. So is he going to act out and be like, fine, I'm going to destroy the TV. And then 10 minutes later, I missed the TV. I don't get it.
It's interesting to me that Twitter did not censor his comment about ending Twitter, which seems to negate his point. And of the 25,000 tweets that he has had since he's been president, this is the first time that Twitter has ever said anything. And he has said 24,999 ridiculous things.
It would have been nice if Twitter got on board with this before the 5 minutes before the next election. Maybe they could have before 2016 and something more positive could have happened where our actual votes mattered. I don't have very much faith in Twitter. I have no faith in our current administration, but this is an interesting fight that I'd love to see play out.
Now we queue up health. A fight for survival. The pandemic is devastating the Black LGBTQ community. A recent human rights, I'm struggling today, you guys, bear with me. A recent Human Rights Campaign report indicates that 22% of Black LGBTQ members had been laid off since their pandemic started, a figure 57% higher than white counterparts. This compounds the fact that there are several ongoing studies that are starting to include that the risk of infection and more dire results is far greater in the Black community than other demographics.
This doesn't come as a surprise to me because this exact same study can also be applied broadly to the LGBT community. We have reported repeatedly that we are disproportionately affected because of leisure and hospitality unemployment. The exact same situation here. It's something that we need to pay attention to because our most stressed minority components of the LGBT community are going to have the hardest time in recovery.
It's important to remember that with any minority group, with the Black minority group, with the LGBTQ minority group, that a lot of these differences don't come from overt prejudice or discrimination in an individual action. It takes years and years of society being prejudiced, and that's what causes these types of things to happen, where the Black community can be more predisposed to diabetes or other things of that nature because they just have a series of social influences that lead that to be the case. It's not a direct action causation, but it's something that's a little bit more complex than that you have to consider. here.
We have reported on the news here that the Black community has suffered greatly at COVID-19 pandemic. My fear is that people are using racism to let them go and say that it's for their concern, but in reality, they want the white people to work. That's my fear.
We queue up health tonight by reporting a new study has examined the death certificates of LGBTQ teen suicide victims and found bullying as the common thread. LGBTQ youth who die by suicide are more likely to have been bullied, according to a new study published by the Journal of American Medicine Pediatrics. The study took reports of death records from 2003 to 2017 and reported that 21% of all LGBTQ records showed signs of bullying. It also reported that almost 1/3 of all LGBTQ youth will attempt suicide at some point in their life. They hoped this research would renew efforts to stop bullying in schools.
That is a deep number to hear. 1 in 3 LGBTQ youth will attempt suicide. I know that I am the youngest one here on cast right now, and I was bullied when I grew up for being gay or for being part of the spectrum that I would later identify as queer. It's really disheartening to hear that so many people go through this, even still, even now in an age where being gay, being LGBT is so prominent and we have so much media. But there are a lot of people that need help, and especially right now when they're stuck inside with abuse rate cases rising, now is the time to act if you hear something happening.
Unfortunately, I'm not surprised by this story. Kids can be cruel. Kids can be terrible. And when they pick on you and attack you for something that you can't control and you can't sometimes hide, yeah, sometimes you think the only answer is to take your own life. And when a youth minister or a parent or a teacher gives you rejecting behavior, suicidal ideation increases by 97%. And in the trans community, it's even higher. I would say 2 out of 4 or half of the trans children become suicidal in their thoughts.
The only solution to this is to stand up against it. And the one exception that I would make to Misty's observation is it's not just kids. We reported last week, for example, a reopening protest of an individual that drove around the state capitol in Denver because of Colorado's gay governor. And he drove around in a truck saying, "Reopen my gym, you faggot." That is bullying. And it doesn't really matter what age you are.
It's true.
Let's move on out of our headlines in terms of catching up on all of the news surrounding COVID-19 with our segment called Quarantine Quickies. The first story tonight is our daily reporting of the coronavirus facts, especially important to the LGBT community. Quarantine Quickies, the facts for Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. We report on the number of coronavirus case numbers tonight. Remember, 7% of population is what is used. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 cases tonight stand at 401,000. In America, LGBTQ COVID-19 cases stand at 121,000. You see the total world cases and USA cases in front of you, and we remind you that America's ground zero for the pandemic. We only have 4.4% of the world's population and 30.2% of the world's cases. We report on coronavirus deaths as of today. The world's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 24,000, while America's LGBTQ COVID-19 deaths stand at 7,000. Total world deaths you can see here, along with total USA deaths. And again, we remind you that our world deaths in comparison in the United States is 28.5% of all deaths in the world. President Trump and Vice President Pence have said a lot of ridiculous things in the first 5 months about testing in the LGBT community. Here are the facts. So far, we have tested 15,607,000 tests taken. It's a dismal number. We give the government a grade of C-, slightly better, but still very unsatisfactory because there are 328 million Americans, which means we've only tested 4.7% of the population, while the medical community recommends 10% for reopening. Despite what Trump and Pence tell the LGBT community, testing and contact source tracing is our #1 solution to the pandemic. So therefore, Q News Tonight recognizes our Hall of Fame top state States in testing, which as of today is number 3 North Dakota, number 2 New York, and number 1 Rhode Island. Equally, Q News Tonight recognizes our Hall of Shame states. They are doing the worst job in testing, and for LGBTQ America, we hope you don't live in one of these states, which is number 5 Kansas, number 4 Oregon, number 3 Colorado, number 2 Idaho, and number 1 Puerto Rico.
Quarantine Quickies. Experts predict how coronavirus will change gyms and workout classes. We've got a video prepared for you. Watch this.
Well, hello, America. It's Al at Q News Tonight. It's happening out. And I thought I'd do a short little post. Day 1 of our new normal. It's the day after Memorial Day. And I have come to the gym. And basically, the first gym that's reopened in Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, Wilton Manors is Zoo Gym. I have just gone through the check-in. They have the door locked. They take you in one person at a time. You sign a terms and conditions release authorization that is 5 pages long and check off basically that they have no responsibility. I have signed that to the desk. In my check-in, something I've never ever seen before in a gym. They hand you, you get it yourself, a towel and personal sanitizer bottle. Each person in this gym has one of these to wipe down the gym equipment before you start and after you finish. Interesting, which I also didn't think about, is they give you cones, and you get 4 cones to put 10 feet around the piece of equipment that you are
As states across the country begin to reopen amid the coronavirus pandemic, there's a lot of questions surrounding what daily life will look like and how it could be different from anything we've experienced before.
In the LGBTQ community, a gym is one of the central components of life. The new normal makes safety as the priority. Masks would be ideal, but we also know that those can be difficult to wear during exercise and may not be mandated.
While it is not the primary means of transmission, COVID-19 can be spread via surfaces as well. So gym reopening should be decided on the following recommendations.
First, how severe the outbreak is in the area where you live, abundance of testing, and relatively low transmission.
Second, cleanliness will be key. Vigorous and frequent cleaning will undoubtedly be necessary to keep a safe and healthy environment in your gym.
Third, gyms should be communicating policies clearly. If they don't go to them.
Fourth, access to top-grade sanitizers, towels for wipe-down sanitation, cones for social distancing. That's the new normal.
Quarantine Quickies. Trump mocks Biden and reporter who refuses to remove their mask. We have a video for you. Watch this.
Mr. President, 2 questions about a couple of things you've tweeted about in the last few days. Were you meaning to criticize Vice President Biden for wearing a mask yesterday? And can you explain why you've been tweeting about a conspiracy theory that has been proven to not be true?
No, Biden can wear a mask, but he was standing outside with his wife, perfect conditions, perfect weather. They're inside, they don't wear masks, and so I thought it was very unusual that he had one on, but I thought that was fine. I wasn't criticizing him at all. Why would I ever do a thing like that? And your second question was? I couldn't hear you. Can you take it off because I cannot hear you?
I'll just speak louder, sir.
Oh, okay, good. You want to be politically correct. Go ahead.
No, sir, I just want to wear the mask.
Go ahead.
The second question was about your tweets about the woman who died, who you're suggesting that Joe Scarborough was responsible.
Yeah, a lot of people suggest that, and hopefully someday people are going to find out. Certainly a very suspicious situation, very sad and very suspicious. Question, please.
I've asked you not to tweet about it anymore, sir.
An absolute fool to talk that way. I mean, every leading doc in the world is saying we should wear a mask when you're in a crowd.
Toxic masculinity has broken out between President Trump and Vice President Biden. It began Memorial Day when President Trump went to Arlington Cemetery and did not wear a mask. Vice President Biden went to Delaware Memorial and wore a mask.
I mean,
President Trump remarked on Biden wearing the mask and that it was unnecessary. The fight was on a reporter asking a question, and Trump asked him to remove his mask, and the reporter refused. Trump then observed he was being politically correct.
Biden was later asked if Trump's mask comments reflect strength or weakness, and his reply was neither. He said wearing a mask represented leadership. He then called Trump a fool and that not wearing a mask is false masculinity. This all sounds so familiar to parts of the LGBTQ community as we continue to discuss toxic masculinity. We are watching it this week.
We would like to thank our set designer, Concepto Modern Living, here in Fort Lauderdale, for making this set that we are at in this living museum possible.
Tonight we are broadcasting from our studio set in the middle of the World AIDS Museum and Education Center. The museum is in Wilton Manors and Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
We joke we're coming from the gayest place on planet Earth.
And all you had to do is look around this table. We end tonight's broadcast with the big finish. Short story mentions of LGBTQ news or news with a gay perspective. So here we go. First on Q News Tonight's The Big Finish. Despite his best efforts, Donald Trump is the least masculine president in history, a new report shows.
Well, duh. Trump uses the Jabba the Hutt strategy of masculinity to slovenly pull attractive things toward him and dress them up in ornamentation. Unfortunately, the lard, the grease, and the violations against human rights keep both from seeming like real men to me.
So you're a big fan, I think. I don't think Donald Trump is masculine, but who am I to say what is masculine? I mean, when I grew up, masculinity was baling hay and getting dirty and not taking a bath. Yeah. I think taking a bath is masculine. I know many guys suffer from their fragile masculinity, but in reality, who cares?
This hardly needs to be said. When your fragile ego requires you to not even follow basic health and safety precautions, you are the ultimate definition of a beta male. We cue up the big finish. Elon Musk and Grimes renamed their baby to, and I'm not even gonna try.
Who would have thought that people named Musk and Grimes could make a baby's name even worse? Maybe this is just a cycle of abuse, because I honestly thought it was just the next Final Fantasy game being released when I saw this name.
It could be a game. People are freaking out that he changed the name. Yet in reality, it's the same stupid name. X1 or XII is 12 in Roman numerals. The baby still has 12 in the name. It's just spelled differently.
Normally, when people make remarks about other people being a lizard, I take it as a joke. But honestly, if Elon Musk revealed a zipper and took off his human costume tomorrow, I wouldn't even be surprised.
I wouldn't either.
He is just one strange guy.
Hashtag reptilians are among us.
The bee people.
The big finish. EasyJet passenger is jailed after squeezing an air steward's bottom and calling him gay boy.
Well, damn. I knew a lot of airline stewards were gay and cute, but I didn't know that was the profession to get into if I wanted a daddy. I clearly made the wrong choice.
I'm glad. He should be jailed. Since when is it okay to grab anyone's bum?
I thought you were saying you're glad I made this choice.
I have a different observation. Congratulations! We have finally achieved equality.
Yeah.
America, men sexually harassing other men on flights now. It's not
Good.
just women. Congratulations.
That's true feminism right there.
Big finish. He's just a little man. He's the leader of the free world. And he is a little man, said Anderson Cooper.
America has infected elections, colored politicians, and counterfeit judiciaries. What about America is the free world any longer?
Viewers, if you get a chance, I highly recommend you go and watch the CNN video of Anderson Cooper. It's only 7 minutes long, and he wasn't attacking the president, but he was reacting to the president doing silly things like making fun of Biden for wearing a mask in public.
He was attacking the president.
But well done. It was very well done.
Okay, now we have an asterisk. Okay, got it. Anderson Cooper really sounds like he is comfortable calling an older man a sad little man. I think hearing his scorn for Trump has awakened something in me, and I think I like it. The big finish. Lisa Kudrow is chomping at the bit for a Friends reunion.
Friends didn't acknowledge 9/11, but I wonder what it would look like in Corona times. I would relate to Joey's fears of being a heartbreaking slut, but I'm probably more of a Rachel.
I would definitely be Phoebe. I loved Phoebe if I was on the show. Can you imagine a transgender Phoebe? Either way, sign me up. I'm watching it or starring in it. Either way.
No, you'd be Rachel, and here's why.
Oh.
I love Friends. And you know what I think we should do? I think the three of us should live in a New York apartment together for a week and see what kind of zany antics we get up to or get into. Sorry, Misty, we were on a break! Sorry, Napoleon, I get to be Joey, and I'm going to have sex with all of your friends.
Shade.
Big finish. Happy 30th birthday to Glee's Chris Colfer.
You go try it, big man. Speaking of being I'm not a fan of characters who perpetuate overtly flamboyant stereotypes of homosexuality in high-profile media. Chris Colfer's character was that in Glee. But I realized being negative would only make me that bitter person. So instead, I'll focus on some of the other Glee stereotypes that I find very hot. Mainly the mean guy, Spencer. Still a flat character, but at least one that made me smile when he took off his shirt.
I don't think Chris Colfer was written to be the flaming homo that you're talking about. I think he was just that in real life. That role is active. I'm going to comment on you real quick. That role is very prevalent in our community. It definitely exists. But I agree with you. It was very trite of Hollywood to portray.
They made the role for him, so of course it's just him.
Perfect fit. And I'll also say he has the perfect female's voice, and I'm super jealous. And if I could do a magic spell, Freaky Friday, fortune cookie, I would trade in a second.
In a second, would trade Chris Colfer for you. In a second. Chris, our straight writer, thought it was a good idea to try to explain to me who Kurt Hummel was. I laughed in his face, as if I didn't know the young man who just soared into my heart when he belted out Wicked numbers and Don't Stop Believing, and then became one of the most important representations of a young gay man on television in the process.
Yeah.
Singing voice, a 10.
Yeah.
Fashion, a 10. Swishing and sashaying in confidence through everything
Proudly
thrown at him, a 10. Perfect 10s across the board. He is the quintessential gay man we all wish we could have been in high school. Slushy in your face, Chris. And happy birthday to Mr. Colfer.
That is today's news for the LGBTQ community on the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Remember, if it's important to the LGBTQ community, it's important to Q News Tonight. But you must help us. Click subscribe on YouTube and share this news.
We are literally out of the closet and into the headlines, and this is the only source of live LGBTQ news in the entire world. Your community needs your support.
You are not alone. We will get through this crisis together.
We are here with you, and this is Q News Tonight.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Al Ferguson, and on behalf of my anchor partners, Misty Eyes and Napoleon Plays, we'll see you tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Good night.